up, everyone? Welcome back to the KAIJU CATACLYSM. I'm DREAGEN.
And I'm Ashley.
And it's been a hot minute since we've done one of these. Remember back in the day where we said we're going to do these once a month? And then life intervened. Yeah, we started moving, and
as you can see, we're in a completely different area.
New setup, so I like to think that maybe it was worth the wait because now it's a bit more presentable. We actually have our nice, beautiful KAIJU CATACLYSM poster courtesy of Andrew Spalding. Check him out. But yeah, so we're back and we're going to talk about Godzilla-Planet of the Monsters, the most recent Godzilla film from Toho. This one is the first animated Godzilla film. It's done by Polygon, who've done like Knights of Sidonia, the Blame movie, Blam! Can never get old saying that, Blam! But yeah, so we did an episode. Actually, I think, geez, the last episode was it the last episode about? No, I think it might have been Pacific Rim we talked about last. But
it's been a while.
It's been a while, but we did talk about this, and we kind of went over some of our thoughts, our theories, kind of how we felt about the approach to the animation. So we're not going to go too much into all that again. If you want to, go ahead and check out that one. Today we're just going to talk about the movie now that we've seen it, and we actually got to see it in Tokyo, not in theaters, mind you, but we were actually vacationing in Tokyo for a couple weeks.
The day we left is the day it came out.
Yeah, so there you go. But so just right off the bat, initial thoughts. What did you think?
I know we were being a little harsh about the animation at first, and it was a lot better than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, they Polygon, not to cut you off, but yeah, one of the things we said in the last video, you know that thing we said we're not going to talk about again just a second ago. We said with each successive project they do, their animation keeps getting better and better, and this one was no exception. This was probably the best looking
for them
that they've done. So there's that. But sorry, continue.
I mean, the movie was definitely interesting. It wasn't like I didn't really know what to expect because obviously, in terms of Godzilla movies, it's kind of it's a lot different.
Yeah. A lot of new territory.
Yeah, but I mean, it definitely was good. It was okay. It was better than I thought it was gonna be, but it wasn't like amazing for a Godzilla movie. And I know you were saying they consider this one of like the official
yeah, it is considered number. Yeah, I'm it's not like a.
It's not like a spin-off.
Yeah, it's considered the next official Toho Godzilla
but
film.
Like, again, I definitely liked it, but again, like I guess my problem is I don't feel like there was as many memorable scenes in it as there are for a lot of the other movies. Like, I mean, obviously there's still some other bad movies. They're not bad, but not as good.
Not all Godzilla films are created equal.
Yeah.
We've committed enough of ourselves to this franchise where I think we've earned the right to say that we've spent enough money on this franchise to be able to. Yeah, especially me. I'm looking at about like $5,000 of it worth right now behind the camera.
Not quite, but
with the last acquisition. But yeah, it's like obviously there are certain films that are held in higher regard.
Yeah.
You know, like 54, obviously. You know, no one's going to say that Godzilla's Revenge is going to be as good as 1954. And, you know, no matter how much you love Godzilla, there's not that I'm saying this movie is like that film.
No.
But yeah, obviously for different people, there's different rankings, but there's definitely some that shine above the others as kind of a general rule, I'd say.
But I mean, I'm assuming we're not caring about spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, usually anytime we do these, like when we did like the Kong Skull Island one, or when we did Shin Godzilla, we're talking about the film now after it's been released. So
and it's been a
spoilers.
month, so.
Yeah, and it's on Netflix. So whether you saw it in theaters in Japan or you have Netflix.
Did it air in theaters in Japan?
Yeah, no, that's the only place it went in theaters.
I forgot.
And then a few months later, it kind of went to Netflix, kind of worldwide, mind you, too. So it's out there.
But obviously, it's one of those things where we were watching the whole movie, and we kept saying, we're like, God, did they just fuck up the scale to Godzilla? Like, what is happening? Like, that's a pretty big oversight.
Yeah, because he's supposed to be 300 meters, which is the largest Godzilla ever.
Yeah.
It might even be the largest kaiju ever. Yeah, we were watching the movie, and I'm like, he's maybe 100, and maybe not even that big.
And then, finally, at the end, it was like, Oh.
Bait and switch, which I did not see coming.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Like, props to the now whether you guys like that or not, it was a surprise 'cause I didn't see that coming because again, even with the marketing, I was seeing like all the shots of all the people like on the little air
things,
scooter thing. Which first of all, I was like, well, you have a 300-meter Godzilla. Why are there and you have spaceships? I want to see a fleet of spaceships battling Godzilla. That would be cool. And I see little guys on like air dirt bikes zipping around him, Attack on Titan style, and I'm just like, okay, he doesn't look that damn big to me. And then you see them like interacting with some of their mechs. I'm like, I mean, when I would see all the shots from the trees, because this is the future world, the environment has been changed, kind of affected or influenced by Godzilla himself. So I was like, okay, well, maybe the trees are just gigantic. If it's Godzilla's world, he would look like he's in a natural
fucking giant-ass redwoods or something.
Which I was kind of like, then why does he need to be 300 meters tall? It's like, if you're not going to put him next to recognizable things, I was like, well, what does it matter? Whatever. But then when
he was a mountain.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, because then we see him with the people around him. Like, he is not 300 meters tall. I think became a gimmick. The biggest Godzilla ever, but on screen he looks like Godzilla's we've seen. And then when they kill him, I was like, okay, he's gonna come back to life, right? They didn't kill Godzilla, and sure enough, that one guy goes, I don't think this is the same Godzilla, even though there's really no reason for them to think that. I was like, well, why not? But regardless of that, when he said that, I was like, oh, suddenly every like major complaint I had about that movie, I was like, I see what they did there.
Yeah.
And sure enough, like 5 minutes later, the mountain next to them starts moving, and who comes out of it? The real Godzilla. All 300 fucking meters of him. And right away you see, oh yeah, that's a 300 meter tall Godzilla. Like, I think at one point he like sweeps his tail over the forest, and like just I don't know, the kinetic friction moving through the air literally sparked the entire like forest on fire. So he caught an entire forest on fire by just swinging his tail over it.
And it's interesting that his atomic breath, it's almost like thundery, lightning-y
kind of. Well, they kind of explained this Godzilla, and they were explaining this honestly through the smaller one now that they've had to fight first. Was that basically Godzilla almost has like his own AT field now?
Yeah.
Or that's his primary. His body is physically resilient, but at a certain point when he's taking enough damage, he kicks on like this force field. So if it's like a mega amount of damage, because they even explained in the past they'd launched like hundreds of nukes at him, and he survived that, and he said he can kind of kick on this force field. They were trying to trigger that, but when he like shoots kind of his atomic breath, it almost like his whole body kind of like, it's like an extension of the force field. So it's not so much that it's coming out of him, but it's like this atomic energy that he's kind of like gathering it in front of him and directing it out. It's kind of like how Goku is making a Kamehameha. Like, you don't see it like shoot out of his hand. You see like the ball of energy.
Concentrating.
Yeah, like you see the ball of energy kind of between his hands, and it's kind of hovering and it's growing, and he can launch it. And that's basically how Godzilla's atomic breath works in this film. It's basically a Kamehameha, but instead of using his hands, he's concentrating it in front of like his mouth or his face, which is. It's an interesting take on the atomic breath. I mean, Shin, they did the same thing too, where they did a different.
And it was purple.
Yeah, it was purple, but there was like show like all the phases of his breath being concentrated at a thin beam. It's like, so once again, like with Shin, whether you like this take on him or not, I still think it's really good that Toho is experimenting with Godzilla again, which the ultimate irony is right now the legendary Godzilla, the American Godzilla, is kind of the most, by the numbers Godzilla. He fits kind of, he's around the right size. He looks generally like, we expect Godzilla to look like. His atomic breath is blue, comes out of his mouth, his spines light up. There's nothing really innovative.
The most classic.
Yeah, so he's not, and at the time people were like saying butthurt a little bit how they changed his origins, and now even his origin is the most,
faithful so
to
far.
The older one compared to these two, because again in this one it's like Godzilla himself didn't appear to like I forget the year, it was 2000. I know it's terrible.
Wasn't it 2020 or something?
No, it was much further in the future.
2040? I don't know.
Whatever is popping on screen right now that I put up in during editing / post production that year. So already he was the last kaiju to show up because before that they were saying how like
That's what they kept saying. They were the he was the
kind of the last one to
and
show.
weren't they saying there was a bunch of Godzillas initially?
No, there was different kaiju. I mean, Orga was there. Rodan was there. They were kind of showing.
That movie?
I guess it's called Final Wars, but I wouldn't
know.
have mind seeing it this way. But yeah, basically all the kaiju started showing up and wreaking havoc on the world, and then Godzilla shows up at the end as like the ultimate kaiju, and he like kills the other ones, and kind of takes over the world and drives off humanity. And I was kind of hoping we would see more of that because they do like in the prologue,
Yeah.
but almost like flash animation a little bit. They don't even really animate that. I was like, I would have liked to at least seen that animated out, to kind of, I don't know. I that was one of the first things I was a little bit disappointed with. I love the prologue to this movie. I just didn't like how they showed the prologue because you read about this way a year or two ago when they were kind of released all the info about this film, and they were explaining to you like what happened to the world, and I was like, and then I heard they were going to break this up into 3 movies. I was like, okay, so this is going to be movie 1, all the kaiju rising up, and then Godzilla basically just like slaughtering them all. I was like, okay, I'll watch that. I mean, again, I know it's Final Wars, but I don't care. I want to see it again.
Yeah.
Because I still like seeing it in Final Wars, so I wouldn't mind seeing it again.
And it's still different because of the setting. It'd be
the nature of it.
Yeah, like
it was in the far-flung future,
also maybe
so
more futuristic.
Yeah. So basically, I just picture like Blade Runner style future. I picture Blade Runner looking cityscapes being devastated by kaiju. Which now that I'm really saying that out loud, I'm like, God damn, where's this movie? So that was like, okay, I love the concept, but I kind of wish we would have, maybe that could have been the focus of the first movie, and then humanity being driven off Earth, blah, 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 blah. And then the second one been their return to Earth, only to find Godzilla is now, humongous, more humongous, and that whole thing, because one of the things they teased really in the beginning of the movie is Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
You see they have to abandon the Mechagodzilla project, so that's not something, because I always heard there might be like a post-credit thing, which there is a post-credit or an after-credit sequence, but it has nothing to do with Mechagodzilla. But they already explained that, Mechagodzilla is going to be the focus of the second film.
Yeah, the poster for the second
film. But right away, they're talking about it at the very beginning of this movie, so they were already building him as a countermeasure. But yeah, so again, there's that, but I mean, again, and one of the things we had talked about too was like, the animation. Okay, obviously, for the anime, traditional 2D anime, or particularly 2D animation uses like keyframes, and usually big budget movies have more keyframes to kind of create more fluid movement, and usually
it's not just the in-betweens. It's the whole animation process.
But like usually
it's smoother.
Yeah, and
there's a lot more frames in between.
Yeah, television will have fewer, so it gives it a bit more of a jerky.
Unless it's big budget.
Yeah, usually like some of the OVAs from back remember they used to do those. But yeah, it would have more. So usually an OVA would be kind of like an in-between for like a movie. A movie would have a lot of the in-between frames. It's a lot of fluid motion. A lot of times they would even rotoscope things. If you watch a lot of the old like Don Bluth movies, a lot of times they would do that. Again, OVA is kind of be not quite as good as movies, but a lot more fluid than television, and TV was a little bit more minimalistic. But for 2D animation,
and
it worked.
Here's the thing. I mean, obviously there's mocap for 3D, and they do that for video games, especially now. A lot of
like the Uncharted games, there's a lot of motion mocap.
I mean, it's most games.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, usually like with 3D animation, and again, I know we've talked about this in the last video, so we're not gonna beat this to death again, but just kind of a quick recap. You again with 3D animation, you basically have to kind of film it, shoot it, animate it like you almost would live action, because it has much more in common with live action. Even if it's very stylistic the way it looks, it's still going to move more like live action because it's a 3-dimensional model as opposed to 2D, which is again flat. So you could have something that's animated in 2D and be rendered, or the art style to look very realistic. If it's 2D, it's still going to move like 2D. Whereas if it's 3D, you could have a very
and either one can be fluid. It just depends on how much money and time goes into it.
Well, yeah, but usually again with 3D animation, it lends itself when something in 3 dimensions does not move like something in 3 dimensions is supposed to move, it becomes very jarring to the eye. Whereas again, 2D, because real life is not in 2D, so you're kind of removed enough from it where it doesn't affect you, it doesn't bother you. Whereas, and I'm not saying this movie bothered me. I mean, again, the animation is still.
I mean, there was a few times where it definitely was like, oh, it's a little jerky.
Again, and again, I know a lot of 3D animation in Japan still kind of utilizes the. Again, I don't think it's because they can't do it. Because we've seen them do it. Again, the Saint Seiya movie.
Anyone that knows anything about anime knows all about how the industry, the
exactly.
time turnover and everything, like it's low wage pay. Like it's a tough industry.
It really
so,
is. It is.
That's why a lot of this, people complain about how it looks, but it's like, well, I don't know. It's a whole thing.
It's a hard, and again, these people are. It's essentially backbreaking work at that point for them. So they do the best they can with the budgets they're given. But again,
it's not that they can't do better. It's just
time, loss of time restrictions. Because here's the thing: initially, this is supposed to be a series, and then they decided to make it a trilogy of films. And I kind of think it would have worked better as a series because this first movie was essentially what I kind of picture, like maybe like the first 3 episodes being, because for a movie it's mostly like you see a little bit of prologue, and then a lot of it is really just the people dealing with some of the politics on the ships and like
and the alien people
do we go back, do we not go back, that kind of stuff. It was really interesting with the aliens, which I'm pretty sure are basically supposed to be the Zillions, like the ones we saw like in Final Wars and all that, but they have this really interesting kind of religion that the last vestige of humanity have kind of embraced this religion, almost like a cult. But it's kind of interesting to see that whole excuse me, my throat has got like dust going down it right now.
Or it's just dry from talking.
Yeah, probably. But so that was all really interesting. But in terms of the actual Godzilla stuff, you really don't see what you first think is the Godzilla until probably about like halfway, maybe a little bit further in the movie. I mean, I know you have like these kind of weird wyvern looking drag. I forget what they're called. Again, here's the name. I'm bad with names, folks. Like I was that guy when I would get records. Like, what's your favorite song off, blah blah blah's record? I love track 4.
Yeah.
I could never remember the names. I go by track listing. So but yeah. So I mean, and all that's cool. But they feel like they really stretched that out because they had to kind of stretch out to a feature-length movie. Whereas I feel like, okay, if this was a series, you have your first episode, which is kind of your prologue, which people were getting off Earth, fine. Second episode, kind of present day where they're at now with the ship. We want to go back, that whole back and forth. Third episode, they get there. They have their first kind of glimpse at a Godzilla, what they do. The next episode would have been the kind of dragon attack. And then after that would have been their first, I think it would have been broken up better. Whereas here they really had to drag it out, which is why I think the next film is actually probably going to be
better.
Paced better, because I think it's going to be, the episodes, that would.
To be fair, it's like a lot of anime sometimes, they kind of take 2 or 3 episodes to get going. So in terms of a movie, it's like if they're keeping it that structure, it's like it's going to be slower. They have to establish everything, the world, the people. Blah,
it works.
Blah.
It works for
part 2. You're like, fuck it, guys, jump in. We know where we're at. Like,
which is why. And again, if they had shot all these back to back, like all these 3 movies, essentially one long movie, and then in Japan, dropped them in theaters sequentially, and honestly, then maybe just. I know it sounds bad, but like wait longer to see them, and then when they finally release them on Netflix, because Netflix is the kind of that it's binge watching, it's that kind of format. Put all 3 on, so you watch one, like, then you watch the other, and you can kind of get that. Okay, you're not really waiting, because the way this one ended, it was like, this is what I've been waiting to see, and then it just ends. You're like,
blue balls.
Yeah, essentially, you get like 5 minutes of what you've really wanted to see, and so as I'm saying, I'm sure the next one's gonna be like yes, but unfortunately, you kind of have to. And I don't want to use this term, mean-spiritedly, but kind of slog through this one a little bit. I mean, this one is interesting. There's a lot of interesting, and visually there's a lot of cool things going on. But the stuff you really, really, really want to see, you don't really get to, like, the end. Even the fight with the kind of the faux Godzilla, I guess is what we'll call him now. Godzilla Light, if you will. Kind of the Zima Godzilla.
Oh, my God.
For any of you 90s kids out there. Although apparently Zima came back for a hot minute. Anyway, whatever. But you know, I mean, even that the really nitty gritty of that fight because they developed this whole plan about how they think they can kill him. Which again, I like. I love when okay, we got to fight Godzilla. We need a plan because normal means aren't going to work. Even in this
Yeah.
future where they have all these space age weapons, it still wasn't working. They had to figure something out. So I liked how they were using Godzilla's kind of biology against him, much the way they did in Shin. So that was cool, but even that was kind of pushed again on the back end. So there's a lot of stuff on the first act and kind of the first half of the second act that's really just kind of like
Yeah.
okay. And then when you get about halfway through the second act, that's when it really okay, the momentum kind of picks up. Whereas I'm like, okay, if you just kind of remove 30 minutes of that in the middle and kind of condense that to like 3 episodes, I think that would have been like, okay, it's
Yeah.
good, you know. But again, I think they were kind of stretching it out for a movie format, and I think the main reason why they wanted to go to a movie or a trilogy of films, as opposed to kind of a series, was I mean I'm not quite sure on the specifics, but I know I guess Toho has a deal with Legendary that they cannot do another live action Godzilla film
Yeah.
till after 2020, and I don't know if that was just a stipulation Legendary did, which I know they did Shin in between, but because there was like going to be a 5-year gap between 2014 and King of Monsters, they had kind of I guess time with the deal, and I kind of harkened it up more to mutual thing because you know a lot of people don't realize that Toho is still executive producing these films with Legendary. That you know they're involved
Yeah.
with these productions to a degree. So Toho is still marketing this as their Godzilla too. It's not that they're completely removed. You know, they're involved with this Godzilla. They have a vested interest in these other Godzilla films. So I know their goal is to kind of they said between now and you know between basically Shin and 2020, they want to have a Godzilla movie coming out every year.
Yeah.
But you know, putting time and focus on a whole nother live action production while they're also going to be working on marketing for the other 2 Legendary films, I kind of feel is stretching them thin.
Yeah.
So, an animated film, which essentially they kind of hired out. They put it's a Polygon film. Toho is bankrolling it. They're still producing it. It's still their licensed character, but as a whole, it's them kind of turning the reins over to Polygon.
Yeah.
They're making them. Toho then basically approves everything. Okay, here's our script. Okay, good. Here's our designs. Okay, good. We like this. Everything good. Okay, you guys go ahead and get to work. So they're not really doing anything directly with this. So it's a way for them to kind of put out a Godzilla film in 2017, was when it was released in Japan, without them really having to like put out a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you know time, and obviously an animated film is going to be cheaper than a live action film. So that way they're going to have, you know, they had Shin in 2016, they had Planet of the Monsters in 2017. They're going to have the next one in 2018, and then I'm assuming they're going to drop the third film in 2019, which will be probably around the same year as you're going to have King of Monsters, and then 2020 you have Godzilla vs. King Kong, and there you go. We've had a Godzilla film
Yeah.
once every year, with only 2015 being the only kind of gap, basically. So, you know, they have a plan, and again, I know they've signed a deal recently where they're going to now literally start bankrolling, you know, all foreign productions of Godzilla and their licensed characters. They're going to pay for like a quarter of the production. So I don't know if that means the MonsterVerse is continuing past 2020, which I'd be okay with, or you know, Legendary's contract is up, and then you know, Toho is basically all right. He's up for bid. Who wants him? You know, kind of thing. And then that's going to be the deal they strike. So we don't know anything about that. But obviously, they are from here on out all full steam ahead with Godzilla, and they have a lot of long-term plans. But in the meantime, they didn't want, you know, people's interest to kind of wane on the characters. So we have these 3 animated films that are coming out. So, but yeah, I mean, beyond that, it's not a bad movie. I don't think it's a great movie, and I don't say that to be like mean-spirited. I know there's other.
Well, again, it's like we said. There's just some that are better than others, and
yeah, and again, I think you know.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's just our opinion. You could have loved it, and you could not like the ones we like better.
Yeah,
as much.
exactly. We're not saying that
Yeah,
our
it's
opinion
not-
is the definitive
yeah.
truth. Again, I don't dislike this movie. I
No,
think it's
it
cool. And
was
again,
good.
I was actually really surprised by the bait and switch. I
Yeah.
usually kind of pride myself on being able to spot these things a mile away. I did not see that coming. So that was cool. If anything, my biggest complaint was that the movie ended when when it really had
Yeah.
me, when I really wanted to see more. What'd you think of Godzilla's design? I know we touched upon this before, but
Old man stoner Goji.
oh man, Goji.
He's just like, get off my lawn. He's got those eyes. They're like so sad, but so like high looking.
Yeah, well, I definitely think the design works better when I saw it in motion.
Yeah.
But that's the weird thing, because one of the complaints I even kind of had to myself, I don't remember the thing I really talked about in the last video, but it was kind of something I just kind of internally was kind of going over in my head, was that I saw there was a lot of inconsistency with the design when I was seeing the marketing. Sometimes it would
Yeah.
look one way, and I realized that's because we're seeing two different Godzillas.
Yeah.
The one I liked more, when I was happy with the design, was the real Godzilla, the big one you see at the end. And the one I was less keen on was like, the faux Goji or mini Goji.
Yeah.
It wasn't the one I was like, it's like, because his face, that's when his face was like a lot more stoner-ish.
Yeah.
The teeth were less defined. So it almost looked like he had like a weird, like toothless mouth. He had like more like an old man. It looks like he had like a turtle face from the front a little bit.
Yeah.
Like a beak. And then when you see the big one, there's actually a great close-up shot where he's almost like he's grinning. He's like, "Arr," and you just see all the teeth. He looked a lot more.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah, basically. He was a lot more defined, like a lot more angle. Like he's got the little like spikes under his chin, like a little beard goatee spike thing going on. So he looked a lot more.
I kind of wish when we did see the final one, because he was apparently snoozing on, as a mountain, because like there was shit on top of him.
I kind of figure like it's stuff that's more like collected over the.
I kind of
centuries.
wish he almost had like trees and shit on his back. Like
Well, I think
it would
that's,
have been really cool.
well, I think it's the whole thing is like it grew over him, so he was literally under a mountain.
But you didn't really see that as
I
much
guess,
on
yeah.
the final.
I mean, like more like a Princess Mononoke kind of thing, a little
I
bit.
mean, not quite, but yeah, like where it's kind of like if it was an ocean thing, that's probably got barnacles all over it, like whales and shit do over time.
Yeah, I mean that would have been
I
interesting.
think it would have been really cool because he was literally a fucking over the nature
Overgrew him,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
and again,
it was still cool.
Oh yeah, and it was cool, yeah. But again, I think, and that goes back against the animation. Like one of the things about Polygon is they have a much more simplistic
Yeah.
look to their animation. So again, it's it's a matter of opinion. It's what you like. I know some people might like that more. It's kind of more of a clean cut. I like a lot of kind of grit and
Yeah.
dirty. And again, it's one of the reasons why I'm sure we said it before, but Record of Lotus Wars, the OVAs are my favorite looking
Yeah.
anime because there's so much detail, physical.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah, and again, all hand drawn. And I like that. I like when animation looks kind of rustic and organic because it makes it feel real to me. Because again,
Yeah.
if it's animated, it's not real. It's completely artificial. So when you can make it feel organic and with a lot of texture to it, it sells it more. Whereas, in theory, with digital animation should be even easier because
Yeah.
But I know their style is much more kind of smooth and simplistic, so I think that's why. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen kind of a more, not bad looking animation, but like more gritty animation where it feels more tactile, I guess.
More textures.
Yeah, so, and I think that would have looked cool, like you said, like you would have had it all kind of, because when he moved, initially, it sounded like huge boulders like grinding against each
Yeah.
other because his muscles are basically, it's like his body is made of armor almost, like the way they describe his musculature, like what he's made of, it's like an indestructible like armor basically. So when he moves, it just sounds like the earth moving. It
Yeah.
sounds like, again, mountains grinding against each other, which was kind of cool because he feels like this elemental force. But I would have liked him to see more of that detail on
more
him.
forest shit on him. That's basically all.
More
it was.
forest shit. We want more forest shit on our Godzilla. Do you hear that? Put some more trees and shit all over him, alright? I want to see some moss and shit, Throw a little mud, what have some spackle.
Give him a little,
All
like
from that.
nest hat.
Yeah, some birds and shit on his head. Tweet, tweet, motherfucker,
Oh my god.
But yeah, again, again, I think it's more or less just their style,
Yeah.
their approach to it. And again, the film has a very kind of monochromatic look. There's not a diverse color palette, which, depending on how you want to look, I mean, for me, I would have liked a lot more kind of diversity. But on the flip side, if this is a world where Godzilla has essentially played God, you know, kind of, I guess, inadvertently, and kind of the world has kind of changed around him. Like, basically now the planet and the environment is like an extension of him. It makes sense visually why it all kind of blends together, because it is essentially an extension of him. But yeah, the planet is essentially now an extension of Godzilla. So visually, it makes sense. I get why they did that. In terms of preference, I would have liked it, which is why I think maybe it would have been better to kind of see the prologue as like a film in itself, so you can kind of see a world of visual diversity.
Polygon's probably like, we don't want to make all those models.
Yeah. But yeah, so you kind of see like, hey, these different kinds of looking monsters in a future, you know, Blade Runner looking world, and then this weird earthy Godzilla. So everything looks very different. Cut to the next movie, which is now it's Godzilla. It's Planet of the Monsters, which really should be Planet of Godzilla.
Yeah.
The monsters are gone. Now the world.
Well, I guess technically there's those that'll.
Yeah, but they're not like the classic kaiju, because that's what we were when we were Planet of the Monsters.
Well, to be fair, it was in Planet of Kaiju. It's Planet of Monsters.
Again.
Maybe the human of the monsters.
Oh wow, they're gonna get really like meta with it like that. That could be interesting. But yeah, so then it makes sense why we see a visually different looking world where it's like, hey, look, it all looks like Godzilla.
Yeah.
Well, it's Godzilla's planet, so it should look like him now because he's Lord of the world now. So he's basically remade the world in his own image. So then that would kind of work. But so. Yeah, so from a narrative standpoint, it works. It makes sense. It's just visually, preference-wise, I like more, you know. It's a lot of, like, whites and greens and blues, you know. So I guess if you love that color palette.
Yeah.
But, yeah, earthy colors. So it definitely, he does fit. It does look like he belongs there, and it does look like the world revolves around him, basically. But yeah, so that's kind of really it. I know we're not going to make this one too long. I know we've been gone for a minute in terms of doing the Kaiju Cataclysm, but at the same time, you know, there's not a lot to say about this movie.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds maybe like a cop-out, and I don't say that to be mean about it. It's
a very straightforward movie. So
it really is.
I mean, again, besides the twist at the end, it's kind of
this whole movie feels like it's like a setup for the next movie.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, okay, even though this film wasn't as dynamic or, you know, memorable as other ones I would have liked, I'm still excited for the next two.
Well, and knowing what's coming up, you know, with Mechagodzilla and stuff.
Yeah,
like, it's gonna be
exactly, and I want to see
so cool.
If Mechagodzilla himself is going to grow larger, because I think he's going to be like in the ruins of a city, which is going to be interesting if Godzilla has reshaped the natural world around him. I'm curious to see if Mechagodzilla has kind of reshaped this mechanical world around him. So we're going to see kind of a weird Mechagodzilla looking city, and then Mechagodzilla kind of rebuilt himself or finished building himself. But now he's going to match Godzilla, so you'll have the largest Mechagodzilla on record too, and to see these two giant kaiju kind of like come together, I will think it'll be cool. So I'm definitely excited for the next one, because I think the next one is going to be the payoff, which makes me very curious what the third one's going to be, because one of the aliens even said that they've seen other worlds be kind of wiped out. Other civilizations on other planet be wiped out by creatures like Godzilla, and I'm like, then I'm thinking to my Godzilla lore, I'm like, what's an alien kaiju who has destroyed worlds, and I'm just like, okay. So we might get that. Hey, maybe even Gigan too. Who knows? But again, so this film, cool, but I think it's mostly set up.
Yeah.
I think 2 and 3 are going to be the ones that's going to get everyone talking. I mean, hopefully we'll see it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that first trailer for, and I want to see. I really want to say again. We got glimpses of Mechagodzilla, but I really want to see what he's going to look like. All finalized, because this will be the fourth Mechagodzilla we haven't had one since Kiru, so we'll see. But anyway, that's gonna do it for us. Like I said, it's kind of a short and sweet one, but I figured, you know, it's the hot topic of the day. We've got plenty more kaiju stuff coming up. We have Pacific Rim coming out in March, Pacific Rim Uprising, pretty sure Rampage comes out in April, so, you know, take a wild guess at what the next 2 episodes are going to be about. We're back now. Again, we shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step 2.
Wow.
Step 2. Anyone? I am old, people.
I got you.
If the patch of white in my beard didn't give away. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.